Hi, everybody. Long time no see. It has been about a month since I have made a books and looks video for you. Maybe you noticed, maybe you didn't, but here we are again. I'm back at it. I have quite a few books that I have read that I am ready to talk about and review and summarize and just share in the way that I do while I put on some makeup. So I hope you enjoy. For those of you who are new here and haven't seen any of my videos, I talk about a book that I have recently read while I put on my makeup for the day. It's kind of a little combo of two things that I really enjoy brought together, and I make YouTube videos about it. And I hope you enjoy hearing about a book, watching me do my makeup, and both at the same time. So I guess here we go. We'll go ahead and get started. This book, pardon me while I get my hair up. This book was actually written by the author of the very first Books and Looks video I ever created. If you go back and watch it, oh my goodness gracious. If you go back and watch it, it's the very first one posted like August of 2022. Very first one. And it is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. Or Turton, I'm not sure. Loved it. Top 10 favorite books of all time. It's what inspired me to make a video because I wanted to talk about it. And so that was my first video. Well, today I am talking about his second book, which obviously I got because I loved his first book so much. And it is The Devil and the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. And this was published in 2020. So it's about 3 years old. I probably had it for about a year before I read it, and it probably took me 2 months to read because, as you can see, it is quite a book. And I liked it, but I did not like it nearly as much as I enjoyed 7.5 Deaths. And I can't exactly tell you why, but maybe as I talk about the story, it'll kind of come to me and I'll be able to explain why I didn't really like this one as much as the other. Again, I still liked it. Let me tell you about the story. Let me tell you about it. Let me stop talking about why I like it and why I didn't. Let me tell you about the story. Let's begin with a summary. It is an extremely complicated, long story with tons of characters. There's even, in the beginning, to help you keep track, like a map, because it takes place on a boat. There's a whole map with like character names and who is where and what is where, so that you can keep track of what is what. And there's also a list of the people who are on the boat, so you can keep track of all the characters, which honestly was necessary because it was a good third of the way through this 500 page book, just shy of 500 pages. It was about a third of the way through before I really got used to who everybody was. But again, I digress. Again, let me tell you about the story. So the basic premise of the story is it takes place in like the 1600s, and these people are traveling from some fictional place in the Near East, and they're headed to Amsterdam. So he's like the governor of this small town, but it's also like a fort that he built and has lived there for like 15 years. So he's kind of a bad guy. He's a jerk. And the people in this little town make spices, and so they commonly send spices up to Amsterdam and other areas up there to sell. And that's basically how they make their living or whatever. And this governor, he has been invited to join like the next ranks because, you know, he's like government level, so he's like moving up politically. And in order to do that, he has to move to Amsterdam. So his wife, they hate each other. He's abusive. He's a jerk. What, you know, standard stuff. His wife, and his daughter, who's extremely intelligent but has to hide her intelligence because it's the 1600s, and women who are intelligent or speak their mind or have any type of like ambition or anything are frowned upon. And so he's like, he won't have anything of it, but the wife is very supportive of it. And so she you find out slowly that she has a plan that once they get to Amsterdam, she's going to run away with her daughter and like go find somewhere safe so that they can grow up and be happy and not live under this abusive tyrant of a man. So they're headed there up to Amsterdam. They all have their plans, right? They all have their goals. Also on the boat is the governor's mistress, whose name was very unique and I don't really know how to pronounce it, but we're going to call her Cece because there were C's and lots of other letters. So we're going to call her Cece. So Cece's there, and she has 2 sons from a previous marriage, and they're along with her. The husband died. He was a witch hunter for a living, and he was killed because he was hunting this demon or, you know, something of the sort. And he caught it. He found it. He'd been tracking it for years and years, and he finally caught it. But unfortunately, he died in the battle. So Cece is there with her 2 kids because she's the governor's mistress. And then also the governor's personal advisor guy. And then he also brought along a captain of a guard and then a bunch of guards because he's like political, and you know they're going on this ship that's a merchant vessel, which also has the captain of the ship and then all these unruly sailors. You know, it's the 1600s, and there might be pirates out there, and then the sailors. So the king has his whole guard, and then again there's also the captain, his first mate, all of the sailors, some of which are very important, like important characters. They actually have names and like roles to play. And then you also find out that there is this famous detective, kind of Sherlock Holmesy and Watson-y, but not. So there's this detective who worked to help the governor find this really cool device that is kind of like a compass before compasses were invented or something. Like, there's a thing in the end of the story where the author's like, I know this isn't historically accurate, just go with it and just enjoy the story, like, chill out. So, like, he has this thing that was stolen. So the governor had this thing that was stolen. It was like a compass. And he hired the detective, whose name was Sam. He was hired to find it, which he did, brings it back, and so the governor is actually bringing this along because he realizes that this is like a huge deal and he'll be able to use it to make a ton of money because now he can, you know, sell it or, you know, whatever. He's going to use it to find his way around the world and sell more products and blah, 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 blah. He's not a very good guy. But the Sammy, the detective, has an assistant who's like this big burly guy, kind of like a guard, kind of like a helper. And he's there too. But the problem is Sammy did something wrong, which we don't find out through most of the book. Sammy did something wrong. And so he has been arrested and he is being taken to Amsterdam to go to trial. Nobody knows what he's done except the governor, and the governor just keeps saying, Sammy knows what he's done, Sammy knows what he's done. So Sammy is in jail the whole time, almost the whole time, but his assistant guy gets permission to like let him out every once in a while and let him like stretch his legs, because this is like an 8-month journey. So that's all happening. Okay, so told you this is complicated. I'm just like giving you the exposition here. This isn't even getting into the plot. So the day that they start getting their boarding, they're getting on the boat. There's passengers who bought tickets and are going to be, you know, also traveling. And then obviously like the court and all those people. And then the actual like sailors and everybody are there. Lots of people on the boat. So they're getting on the boat and this random guy like stands up and he's like all dirty and gross looking. And he's like, beware the devil. If you get on this boat, the evil will follow you and you all will die. So everybody's like freaking out. And then he bursts into flames and like keels over dead. So everybody's freaking out. Like the boat is cursed. This trip is cursed. People are like, we shouldn't do this. We need to stop this. Like, no, cancel, blah, 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 blah. But the governor's like, no, it's just some crazy guy. We are going to go on this trip. We have all these spices to deliver. And it's our business for the whole town. And, you know, I'm going to get this big political promotion. Like, we're doing this. Like, it's fine. Just stop being superstitious. Whatever. So they get on the boat and things are going along. But weird things start happening. So, like, First, there's this other lady who is staying on the boat who nobody ever sees. She just stays in her room the whole time, which is a little suspicious, right? So everybody's suspicious about that. And then there's a preacher on board with like an assistant girl, and the preacher comes up missing, and then they find his body like 2 days later. He'd been murdered. There is a theft that's like stuff keeps getting stolen, and they can't figure out how. And then like they're actually with a fleet of 6 other boats, and at night they all stop for safety because of pirates, and they stay close together at night, you know, when the sun goes down, and they all turn on their lanterns so they can keep an eye on each other. And there's an extra lantern, an 8th lantern out there somewhere, and they're like, what is that boat? Who is it? And they're like, it's the devil. We knew the boat was cursed. We knew this trip was cursed. So everybody's freaking out. All these weird things are happening. And then you slowly start to find out that what do I want to do with my makeup today? Let's do red, because I'm wearing red. I don't think I want to do red. But I gotta do something that doesn't look too weird. And I do pink like all the freak. And you know what? I'll just do a traditional smoky eye. Okay. So as the story goes on, you come to find out that the assistant that works with Sammy, and I really need to remember his name because he's super important. The wife's name is Sarah. She's important. What? He's like literally the main character, and I can't remember his name. This is me. Welcome. I don't remember names ever. Aren't. A-R-E-N-T. Aren't or Aren't. I'm not sure. I said Aren't in my head when I was reading, so we'll call him Aren't. So Arendt's the assistant, Sammy's assistant. He's like a big burly guy, real strong, real buff. But you find out that he was sort of orphaned as a kid. So his father was basically like a big old douchebag and was like abusive and whatnot. But they went out one time fishing, hunting, I forget, and were gone for like 3 days. And eventually Arendt returns home. He has no memory of anything, and he has this weird scar on his arm. He has zero memory. He has no idea what happened to his father. He doesn't remember anything that happened since he left the house a few days earlier, and then he has no idea where this scar came from. So generally just like doesn't know what's going on. He was like 10 at the time, and everybody in town thinks it was a witch, that he is a witch or he is a demon and he killed his father and they need to get rid of him. And his mom believes all of this because she's like superstitious too. So she like basically shuns him, and they start, for whatever reason, they start calling the demon Old Tom. There was a reason, but I don't recall. There's something about like a homeless man named Tom, and they blamed him somehow, but then they still blamed Arendt for it was complicated. So they start calling this demon Old Tom. Well, flash forward many years, Arendt was adopted by his grandfather, his mother's father. He took him from her because he's like, I don't know what happened, but I understand that she's kind of going crazy, and he basically rescues him and raises him. And you also come to find out, first shocking twist, like, okay, you actually kind of found this out pretty early in the book, but you find out that Arendt is the governor's nephew, because like they meet up at some point and he's like, Uncle, it's so good to see you. But they're not really related. He was the next door neighbor of the grandfather who raised him, and they were like really close. They actually weren't related, but because he was like at the age to be an uncle, so they were really close, okay? And the uncle now is a douchebag. Like, he's abusive and he's awful and he takes advantage of people and he's like ruthless, and he hides his daughter because she's smart and won't let her do anything. Just awful. And then you slowly find out through the whole story that he like attacked other villages and demolished them, and then like claimed all their businesses for his own so he can make more money. So like he does this spice, but then that village over there did that spice, so he like destroyed them, and then now he sells that spice. And then like that town had, I don't know, textiles, and so he did something to mess their whole town up, so they were all devastated. And so he was like, oh, I'm just gonna buy all of that from you, and now I'm gonna sell your textiles. So he's like that kind of douchebag. So Arendt sees him and he's like, I haven't seen you, Uncle, in like 20 years or whatever. How have you been? And like he never met Sarah, the wife, or anything. And so he's just like, how have you been? I haven't seen you. I'm glad to see you. I heard you were governor of this town, that you were really successful, and blah, 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 blah. And then he slowly finds out from Sarah and from other people that he's been a jerk, and he's like having trouble reconciling this. And then he also finds out that his uncle is the one who put his boss Sammy in the boat prison. And he's like, uncle, tell me what he did. Like, I'm sure it's miscommunication. I've been working for Sammy for like 10 years. He's a good guy. Like, he did all this work for you. Like, I don't understand why, blah, 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 blah. And the uncle won't tell him. He's like, Sammy knows what he did. Just don't worry about it. It is what it is, and he deserves what he is getting. So weird things keep happening. And remember, Sammy is a detective. So it basically convinces his uncle. He's like, listen, weird stuff's happening. Everybody thinks that the boat is haunted or possessed by a demon. Sammy's a detective. Let me use him to help you solve this mystery. And his uncle's like, screw that. He's an awful person. I don't want to have anything to do with it. But Arendt does it behind his back, and he's getting Sammy out every now and then and like telling him what's going on. And Sammy's like advising him on how to solve it. And in the meantime, Sarah, the governor's wife, is also getting involved because she's like, something's up. The lady in the next cabin, like I never see her, weird noises, don't know what's going on. The preacher ended up dead. So she's like, her mind's going. She's thinking something's wrong. And Arendt is also like, okay, we need to figure this out. And at this point, it's only been like 2 weeks on the boat. They're going to be on this boat for 8 months. So they're trying to figure out, what's going on. They're seeing this weird light out there. The preacher ends up dead. Stuff keeps getting stolen. And then, there are animals on the boat, and like a group of animals was slaughtered, and they could find no evidence of who did it or how. They just found like all these dead animals. It was crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. So they slowly start figuring it out, and they realize like little bits of pieces of information along the way. Super complicated. I'm just gonna jump forward to when they figure out what actually happened. Okay, so it all comes together because they start piecing all of the things together. Number one, the fact that Arendt's father died when he was there. He remembered a memory. He was told that eventually he was told. Well, actually, I think it might have happened in this story on the boat. His uncle confesses to him that the reason this all happened when he was a kid, it was his grandfather's plan all along to kill his father because his father was so awful. So the grandfather hired the governor back before he was governor, when he was just the neighbor, to go and kill his daughter's husband, who was abusive and awful and blah, 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 blah. But in that scenario, Arendt somehow like fell and hit his head and had like a concussion amnesia. And that was a total accident that he forgot everything. And the scar was just from like he fell on a rock or something. He got this weird scar that was in the shape of, it almost looked like an eye. And so they were like, this eye is a symbol of a demon and blah, 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 blah. But none of that was true at all. But as it turns out, the governor, again, before he was the governor, after he killed the father, and Arendt was his neighbor, and he helped raise him. He used this to advantage because he noticed that in the time between Arendt's father being killed and him as a kid, like he couldn't remember, and they all blamed him. They thought he was a demon, and the scar was a sign of the demon. He got this idea. He's like, I might be able to use this. People are genuinely afraid of this. I know it's all fake. So he starts like spreading this gossip, and he starts going with it. And he's like, yeah, it's true. There's a demon, and he was terrorizing my family, blah, 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 blah. And it's true. And then he would say, oh, well, the demon, the scar, he would put that design or that picture in various places in the towns that he would overcome. He would actually like, oh, I want to take over that town. They're my competition. So he would start putting, hold on, my mirror's too far away. Pardon me. He would start putting that he would start putting the eye-shaped scar symbol, which was absolutely nothing, total quinky dink, it looked like an eye. He would start putting that in the towns that were his competition and were like making him not make as much money. So he would do that, and then everybody would get freaked out. Oh, there's a demon in our town. There's a devil. We need to find him. And then he would hire a witch finder or a devil tracker. Remember, his mistress's ex-husband is a devil tracker, was a devil tracker who died in battle with a devil. Are you seeing where this is going? So anyway, you find out that in the years past, this is how he ended up so rich and how he got to the position of being governor. He used this eye-shaped devil symbol in the towns to scare people and say, like, spread rumors that so-and-so is a devil, and if you don't get rid of him, your whole town is going to be taken over by evil. And then he would hire this devil catcher, witch finder person to go into town and be like, yes, they are a devil. And then everybody would turn on whoever was the most powerful person in town. And then he would come into the rescue and give people a bunch of money, buy all their stuff, and basically save them from the destruction that this evil devil-possessed witch person created in their town. So it was all his ploy. He was doing it the whole time. But you don't find this out until like the very end, okay? So he did all this, is how he ended up being so rich. And the wife was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. That's insane. But honestly, that tracks. So now you find all that out. And then the next night, the governor ends up murdered in his bed. So, like, everybody wants to murder him. His wife wants to murder him. His own daughter wants to murder him. Arendt is the only one who doesn't want to murder him. Even you find out even his court advisor person wants to murder him as well, because there's a whole other side story there. I'm not going to get into that. He wants to murder him. Like, all these people want to murder him. And there's all these other side stories too of like stuff going on with like the soldiers and the other passengers, like all these other side stories that make it complicated and make it more mysterious and more confusing. I gotta give it to Stuart Turton. He does a really good job at like really making a complex, intermingled plot line where all these characters all have some important element to the story, but each thing in and of itself, you're like, what? That's like a whatever little side story, but it ends up playing into it somehow. I can't even begin to give you all the details of all the things that come up in the story, so I'm just sticking to the primary facts. So everybody wanted the governor dead, and he winds up dead. But the crazy thing is, they can't figure out how he was murdered. They found a knife in his chest in the morning, and nobody went in or out. He has a guard sitting outside of his room all night long. Nobody went in or out of that room all night. They cannot figure out how it happened. So they do end up figuring out how it happened, because they figure out who done it. And I guess, should I just go straight to the who done it? Sure. Let me just tell you who done it. So, remember the witch finder, right, who died? His wife, who was Cece, the governor's mistress, they were married, happily married years ago. They had 2 children. Everything was great. He was a witch finder, a demon hunter for the governor. The governor fell in love with Cece and wanted her to be his mistress. And so as it turns out, he was like, okay, well, I'm going to just make this happen. And he basically orchestrated the witchfinder to be killed. But unbeknownst to him, the witchfinder's wife, Cece, who is currently his mistress, had a few secrets of her own. Let me tell ya. This is the part. Well, honestly, the whole thing was very much like, I did not see that coming. That was an interesting twist in how it all came together. I did not see this coming. She, as it turns out, when she was a child, she was one of the royal family. She was one of the children in a royal family in one of the towns that the governor attacked and destroyed. And he had claimed that her parents were witches, and basically the governor caused her entire family to be destroyed. Her home was destroyed, her life was destroyed, her parents were killed. She lost everything and had to become a lady of the night. And she had to do that because she was beautiful and she had nothing. But as luck would have it, she eventually found this lovely man, the witch hunter guy, and legitimately they fell in love. Now, at this point, the witch hunter was in fact working for the governor. They fell in love. They got married. They had children. They were living relatively happily ever after. But this entire time, Cece held a grudge against the governor. So she decided to use her connection through her husband, who worked as a demon hunter, witch finder for him, to gain access to him. And then the last straw was when her husband was killed thanks to the governor's orchestrations. So at that point, she was like, fine, I will be your mistress. Now the governor at no point knew who Cece actually was, that she was the daughter of a family that he had destroyed and she had been bent on getting back at him her whole life. He had no idea. Nor did he have any idea that she was pissed and knew that he was the reason her husband died. So, like, he's a douchebag. So she becomes his mistress and is just biding her time trying to figure out a way to destroy him the way he destroyed her. So she's been planning this whole thing. So, all right, I guess that's fine. This whole boat thing with the weird things happening and all the different people dying on camera, I don't think my eyes look all that great, but in real life they look much better, much more well blended. So just so you know, that's what's happening here. But anyway, so Cece, the mistress, had been planning her whole life for like years and years and years to get back at the governor. Okay, like it was all a plan. This boat trip, the weirdo guy at the beginning who was like, "Don't get on the boat, it is cursed," and then burst into flames. That was all planned ahead. She was she was the one who was stealing stuff. She was using all these tricks and stuff, and like it was not tricks, like not magic, but she was using like pulley systems and, you know, fish wire or fishing wire or whatever. Not literally, but she was using things to make things look more mysterious and scary and like, oh, it was a demon, oh, it was a witch, it was whatever. So that she could like weave this whole picture and basically torture and kill the governor exactly how he did to her. But at the very end, there was an even bigger twist. Like, even once you figured out that Cece was like behind it all, and like she orchestrated all of this to get back at him and her whole history and how, you know, her family was destroyed and blah, 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 blah. People are like, wait a minute, how you couldn't have done all of this by yourself? Like, I was with you when the blah, blah, blah weird thing happened. Like, how could you have had something to do with that? And that was when Sammy, the detective that's in boat arrest, he's in boat jail for allegedly doing some horrible crime. All false. Sammy and Cece are siblings, and they are both like geniuses. And so they have been working together all these years to make this happen for like years. And Arendt had no idea, and the governor had no idea. Nobody had any idea. They thought they were both just lovely, lovely people. Not true. As it turns out, not true. So they planned this whole thing together. Sammy was involved the whole time. He had like a trap door in his jail cell to like sneak out and do stuff. So nobody ever suspected him because he was in jail. But he wasn't. He was actually getting out and doing stuff and like helping and whatnot. Helping his sister do all these things to get back at the governor because he too was pissed because his family was destroyed as well. Oh, and the whole thing about like Sammy did something wrong and the governor was, you know, pissed. That's why he was in jail. They forged a letter from like some random person saying Sammy is a traitor. He did something or the other, something where he was like a traitor against the government. And he was supposed to be brought back to Amsterdam for trial, which is why the governor was like, he's coming on the boat, but we're going to keep him in jail because we have to take him to trial in Amsterdam. But really, it was all faked because they needed Sammy on the boat in jail so that he would have an alibi but be able to sneak out and make all these things happen. So, yeah, that was how it ended. Oh no, I gotta, okay, we're good. That was how it ended with them. Stop. Why are you doing that? Oh, well, I guess it's going to be a little bit blurry. Maybe it'll fix itself in a moment. It must be my lipstick. It doesn't like my lipstick. Oh, I am not doing well. Anyway, that was how it ended. And everybody was like, listen, we all hate the governor. The promotion, all made up. I'm still blurry. I'm sorry. The promotion, all made up to get the governor off the boat. Or on the boat. Because they're like, the governor knew what he did and he was afraid to leave his like Fort Castle Island because he knew like everybody was against him. And like he was worried about people coming to get him for all of the atrocities he had committed. So they planned this whole thing, the promotion, the fake arrest of Sammy, everything, in order to get him on the boat so they could do this. They could scare the crap out of him and then kill him. That was their plan all along. But everybody was like, well, we all hated the governor. Oh, and then also Arnott and Sarah slowly fell in love over the course of the story. So at the end, when the governor was dead and she's like, I'm free of him, free to do whatever I want, they decided that they weren't going to tell anybody. Oh, I forgot. There was a mutiny. This was like the climax. There was a mutiny and they crashed. Well, the boat crashed and they ended up on an island, and that was kind of when everything started to come out and they started to figure everything out, and they managed to get Cece to confess to everything. But at this point, like 80% of the people on the boat died. Seriously? Should I just come in closer? Okay. Like 80% of the people on the boat were dead because of the crash and the mutiny, and there was a fire and stuff. They figured everything out. Nobody cared that the governor was dead. So they all just decided to move on with their lives. Like everybody just went their separate ways. Like they ended up being rescued in some capacity. I forget exactly how. Like they actually weren't that far away from another island. So they all got rescued. Sarah and her daughter, she got together with Arnott and they went off their merry way and lived happily ever after. Cece and Sammy went on their merry way and lived happily ever after. The rest of the sailors and passengers went on their merry way and lived happily ever after. And they all just pretended like none of this ever actually happened. So I'm not super excited about that ending. I would have liked maybe a little more, come on. I maybe would have liked a little bit more closure. But honestly, overall, I really, really liked it. And I would give it like an 8 out of 10. It was a really slow burn. And for 500 pages, it's a bit of a too slow of a burn, in my humble opinion. But again, the characters were so well developed. The complexity of the story was really good, and the twists were really good. I loved, like, a whole world was created for this story. Just like 7.5 Deaths, it was very complex, and I am impressed at the author's ability to like keep track of everything and maintain it and make everything come together so well, when it was just like all these things and like all these bits and pieces. Like there was so much more in the story than I could possibly recall and bring up here, but I would recommend it. I actually would suggest 7.5 Deaths more. That's like a 10 out of 10. This is like an 8 out of 10. But yeah, if you like good mysteries, slow burns, this is also kind of a historical piece, but again, very fictionalized. I liked it, and I'm looking forward to Stuart Turton's next book. There was a comment in the back that says he's already working on his next novel. It doesn't say much about it, but I will definitely give it a read. I am sorry, I can't stay in focus. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, that's it. I got a haircut yesterday. So like she curled it and it looks super pretty. It doesn't ever really look like this in real life, but yeah, now it's recorded for all of history that sometimes when somebody else does my hair, it looks nice. And this is my makeup. I'm loving with my red shirt, the red lip. And I think my smoky eye turned out pretty good. I didn't put any sparkles on. I am so sorry. You know how important sparkles are. Let me put that on real quick. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you might give this book a read. If not, that's okay. What books do you think I should read? Are there any recommendations you can give me for books? Anything you've read recently? Please share. Please tell me what you think I should read. Tell me what you think of my summary of this book. And of course, tell me what you think of my look. If you have any suggestions on looks I should try in the future, any colors or vibes or styles. Yeah. The end. Not bad, not bad. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fabulous everything. And as always, stay beautiful inside and out. Bye.